When it comes to assisting the evolution and expansion of human consciousness, there are hundreds of thousands of possible places to start and books to read. Technically, every single thing that we can learn and grow from can be part of the process of our evolution, but the best possible way to establish both immediate and enduring value in souls is to give them concrete philosophical and ideological formulae based in absolute truths, which can be applied to how we interpret information in a logical way or interact and react to situations in a healthy way. This act of constructing and sharing the building blocks of wisdom, reason, and health is one of the most meaningful purposes for any soul to strive for, as it helps to build an unshakable foundation upon which we can lead purposeful lives, a foundation which can weather all storms and which can continue to build solid foundations for others. All around the world, people strive for truth, for ethics, for purpose, or for lesser indulgences, but too often neglect the nuanced foundation of logic which guides how we measure, question, and test every conclusion that we build. And oh, how people love to build conclusions. But when the wind and the rain come, and they say, "I am the wind, I am true. I am rain, I am true. What is this tower before me? Is it true?" Their towers are blown over, they crash and they crumble, and they might say, "How dare you, rain? My windows, I know they were true, and the bricks of my fireplace, they were true, and the roof and the gutters, they were true." But they don't understand that the foundation they built upon was simply not solid. The allegory of Plato's cave is an example of this sort of foundational philosophical formula of reason, though it has one crucial flaw, so I'll get to that in a second. The recognition of knowing what we do not know is critical to the process of learning. We must understand our ignorance and able to discern how to approach possibilities. Without such a conscious awareness at the foundation of our logic, we easily overestimate and hence inhibit ourselves. But, and this is important to understand, a lot of people actually hypocritically misapply this allegorical construct about perception in an accusatory sense, by stating that the observations of others about a given topic must be coming from a subjective place. And this is hypocritical because they themselves only have a subjective observation of the other person's perspective, and they don't know whether the other person knows something is an absolute fact or if it's just a belief. So by accusing others of interpreting something subjectively, unless of course you know with certainty that they are in error, one is making an absolute statement from a subjective space and hence limiting their own capacity to interpret possibilities. This is a pitfall which many people fall into, largely because if they believe it, it absolves them of the responsibility of logically testing the veracity of another's statement. But, like I said, the Plato's cave allegory isn't quite perfect, and I actually need to add something very important to it, which is that whether or not the people in the cave can know about the outside world is actually dependent on what the shadows on the wall are doing and showing them. If the shadows on the wall are teaching people about the outside world, about the stars and the trees and the animals, then people can conceptualize such things to the degree of the efficiency of the teaching. And I think it's very important for people to recognize that we do very much have the power, through sufficient logic, to understand things we have not experienced, and not to take that allegory as, pure gospel without that stipulation. And as a brief example of the fact that this statement itself is a formula, we can apply it directly to the Plato's cave allegory. Right? Depending on who he was talking to, when Plato presented this construct to people, he was like a shadow on the wall in their cave, teaching them of the stars outside, the stars being the natural limitation of their experiential consciousness. However, by explaining the concept so well, people who understood the allegory would then be prepared when they confront something they are ignorant about, a new star, to recognize their limitation and more accurately approach its properties, rather than being quite so surprised by their own ignorance. So now that I've added that stipulation to Plato's cave, I would like to casually invent a new word, which I feel is critically lacking in the English language, and which actually makes it somewhat difficult to discuss the philosophical and spiritual evolution of consciousness, because this concept is pivotal to the philosophical and spiritual evolution of consciousness. It is a verb, and I will define it as to form the initial categorization of the properties of a newly observed object or concept through subconscious associations and or active analysis. I find this word important because we need to begin actively distinguishing between which parts of our analyses of concepts are reactive or subconscious and which parts of them are active or conscious. And most of the words we have for categorizing a new thing, such as categorizing, analyzing, grasping, conceptualizing, or contemplating, are entirely active, and so to me they do not encompass the whole process of the categorization of a new object or concept, by ignoring that much of the process is more reactive than active. This makes me feel like I have to say, simultaneous subconscious and conscious categorization every single time I talk about the process of observing a new object or concept, which is very inefficient. So this very important new word I have dubbed to scrasp. I've chosen this form because it implies scrapping together, scraping up, or subconsciously grasping at, and most importantly, it sounds funny and is one syllable. I presently intend to continue using this word for quite some time. I'm also considering adding two variations to it, which imply that one is more actively intelligently grasping or more inactively subconsciously grasping, so that people can more easily make fun of each other for being lazy about concept categorization, which I think would be a very healthy evolution of bullying, but I will decide those other words at a later time. Now, as important as it is to encourage all who seek the truth to contemplate how they grasp new ideas, it is actually much more important to first encourage the understanding of why they seek the truth. Alright, we're going to let this airplane go by real quick. Hello, airplane! They're approaching the end of their journey. It's appropriate. All right. So, do they seek the purpose for pleasure or for higher purpose? The duality between pleasure and higher purpose, when applied to grasping, is actually one of the most powerful meditations that... All right, we got a helicopter too. Let the helicopter go by. All right. Back to the point. So, the duality between pleasure and higher purpose, when applied to grasping, is actually one of the most powerful meditations that every spiritual and religious aspirant in the world needs to focus on to help bring humanity to a higher plane of consciousness. This can be a formula for how we interpret every single piece of information presented to us. Are we concluding something because we like how it sounds, or are we concluding something because it possesses logistical veracity or is important? Going back to the concept I mentioned earlier, where people accuse one another of subjectivity, they often do this because of pleasure and not because of higher purpose or truth. They do this because it allows them to be intellectually apathetic, to disregard the process of attempting to consider or verify the claim of the other person, and this is pleasant to them. So this construct of pleasure versus purpose needs to be deeply applied to every spiritual and religious pursuit, because it is the key to the evolution of the human soul. So let's apply this concept to meditation. Do we study and practice meditation because we desire freedom or release? Then we are only doing it for a selfish pleasure, and it is not a powerful meditation. Or do we do it because we need truth? We need the power to help people and change the world. Then we have discovered the higher purpose of it, and we can make our meditations active in the pursuit of creation rather than merely passive. In Dante's Inferno, which is obviously fictional, but I'm going to use it for a moment, Limbo is placed at the top of purgatory, just above lust. I would argue that lust is obviously above limbo and purgatory, but that's completely beside the point. I just had to mention it. This is because neutrality, or a state of non-conflict, is not purposeful. It accomplishes very little. It is not the ultimate state of divine consciousness, which must be willing to make certain sacrifices to our selfishness and to our pleasure so as to improve creation, to protect innocence, to fulfill sacred obligations. So those who meditate in pursuit of freedom from pain can only attain limbo, which is a legitimate state of peace, but it is not the culmination of purpose, and way too many people idolize it as such. It is actually very unhealthy to say that you feel fine no matter what's happening around you, because then you forfeit a lot of your will to change negative situations. That doesn't mean it's useless, though, as it can be a beneficial stepping stone of reaching higher meditations, because it helps us understand what it is to be freed from the afflictions of our instincts and impulses. But once again, we recognize that but once we recognize that freedom from affliction, we should learn to focus our meditations towards purpose, towards constructing artifacts of beauty and wisdom, towards unraveling mysteries, conflicts, and ethical issues, towards building a pure foundation upon which all souls may safely structure their conceptual homes. We can take that a step back from meditation and then apply it to all religious and spiritual paths, all political ideologies, all philosophical doctrines. Are we choosing them because they please us in some way, or because they help us fulfill a purpose? Some may be Christian and say, I like this religion because it makes me feel comfortable, like I'm taken care of. But is that it? Is it just pleasurable to them to feel that way? Or are they taking the parables and teachings of Christ and using them to manifest a better world? Someone else may look at Christians who only desire comfort from their religion and say, oh, this whole thing is corrupt. It's full of fools. I don't respect any of them. All right, we got to say goodbye to another plane real quick. Bye, plane. All right, so I'm going to start that whole sentence over. So someone else may look at Christians who only desire comfort from their religion and say, this thing is corrupt. It's full of fools. I don't respect them. Don't respect any of this. But are they choosing that belief because it is pleasurable to them to condemn others, to think that they are better than some categorization in their head? Or because that belief actually helps them serve a higher purpose of improving themselves and creation? It mostly just validates their apathy in thinking about things. So every single idea that occurs should be observed in the context of whether it comes from a place of desire for pleasure or a place of the purpose to manifest a better reality. Only with that conscious observation of how we interpret everything we grasp, I'm going to keep using that word, can we truly begin to formulate the process of how to build the best possible world for ourselves and others. And all of this circles back to the primary theme of all of the lives that I've ever lived. The ultimate truth of the nature of all good and evil in the eyes of God. Those who attain knowledge, yet choose wickedness, by nature seek to degrade the logistical and ethical consciousness of souls so as to enslave them, almost always through the presentation of oversimplified binary divisions which appeal to pleasure over purpose and reason. Meanwhile, those who attain knowledge and choose righteousness seek to build ordered structures which maintain prosperity and balance in all dimensions, while providing souls the opportunity to understand the process of intellectual, spiritual, and ethical evolution. Yet we are often nuanced in how we offer more profound knowledge to mankind, for we must rationally ensure that ignorant men do not harm one another, and also that those who would strive for such knowledge and power for evil purposes cannot use it to degrade and exploit others. Even by saying what I've written here, an evil person could contemplate ways to prevent people from comprehending the difference of a belief based in pleasure and a belief based in the higher purpose of reason. So all of this is profoundly important. This is an understanding which accelerates the growth of all souls. It is a keystone which allows our communication to structure more rational, purposeful, efficient communication in all of our interactions and intentions. So I pray that you find value in this, because for all my meditations on how to bring divine wisdom to this world to help souls understand the process of becoming as healthy as possible, all good things, all logic, ethics, and purpose can be summarized as health when presenting certain ideas to mankind. But anyways, in spite of all that, my personal process of reaching and connecting with people is still obviously very limited and under construction, seeking improvement. So I hope you can help more people than I can. But it would be very wrong of me to outsource my own responsibility to explain my contemplations to the world. So I will continue to work. Right, and I admit, part of me has always kind of wanted to just be able to post all of my thoughts online and believe that one day everybody who wants to unravel the truth of creation and build a better world will just come to me and discuss the nuanced processes of manifesting that better world with me. But I know that's very much an unrealistic belief based in desire and not in logic or higher purpose. But it is a very difficult calculation to figure out how to get this sort of philosophical conceptualization to more people. So I don't judge myself too harshly for my failure to reach people, though it does still weigh heavily on my heart, and I really hope I find a way to connect with more people over the coming years. Anyways, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. And as always, thank you for listening. I'm going to say goodbye by taking an image of a tree from underneath it. I've always enjoyed images of trees from underneath them. It's December in California, but that basically means it's fall. Anyways, hope to see you in the comment section.